Bitcoin is a decentralized network with a transparent set of rules that allows for efficient money transfers over the internet, making it a viable alternative to central bank-controlled fiat money. There has been a lot of discussion about how to price Bitcoin, so we decided to look into what the cryptocurrency's price might look like if it gains more widespread adoption. However, it is necessary to take a step back first. Bitcoin and other digital currencies have been promoted as fiat money substitutes. But what determines the value of any currency? Why are currencies valuable? Currency is useful if it serves as a store of value, or, to put it another way, if it can be relied on to maintain its relative value over time and without depreciating. Commodities or precious metals were used as payment in many societies throughout history because they were thought to have a relatively stable value. Rather than requiring individuals to carry around large quantities of cocoa beans, gold, or other early forms of currency, societies eventually shifted to minted currency. Even so, many examples of minted currency were usable because they were reliable stores of value, made of metals with long shelf lives and little risk of depreciation. In today's world, minted currencies are frequently in the form of paper money, which lacks the intrinsic value of coins made of precious metals. Individuals, on the other hand, are more likely to use electronic currency and payment methods. Some currencies are representative, meaning that each coin or note can be directly exchanged for a specific amount of a commodity. Many global currencies are now classified as fiat as a result of countries abandoning the gold standard in order to alleviate concerns about federal gold supplies being depleted. Fiat currency is issued by a government and is not backed by any commodity, but rather by people's and governments' faith in the currency's acceptability. The majority of major global currencies are now fiat. Fiat currency has been found to be the most durable and least susceptible to deterioration or loss of value over time by many governments and societies. Scarcity, divisibility, utility, and transferability are all factors to consider. A successful currency must meet criteria related to scarcity, divisibility, utility, transportability, durability, and counterfeitability, in addition to the question of whether it is a store of value. Let's take a look at each of these characteristics one by one. 1. Scarcity of resources. The supply of a currency is crucial to maintaining its value. A large money supply could lead to a spike in the price of goods, resulting in economic collapse. An insufficient money supply can also cause economic problems. Monetarism is a macroeconomic concept that focuses on the role of money supply in an economy's health and growth, or lack thereof. Most governments around the world continue to print money as a means of controlling scarcity in the case of fiat currencies. Many governments use a predetermined level of inflation to keep the value of their fiat currency low. For example, in the United States, this rate has historically been around 2%. Unlike Bitcoin, which has a variable issuance rate that changes over time, this is not the case with Ethereum. 2. The ability to divide. Currency that is successful is divisible into smaller incremental units. A single currency system must have the flexibility associated with divisibility in order to function as a medium of exchange across all types of goods and values within an economy. The currency must be sufficiently divisible to accurately reflect the value of all goods and services available across the economy. 3. Usefulness. To be effective, a currency must have utility. Individuals must be able to trade currency units for goods and services with confidence. This is one of the main reasons why currencies were created in the first place, to allow market participants to avoid bartering directly for goods. Utility also necessitates the ability to move currencies easily from one location to another. This stipulation is difficult to meet with heavy precious metals and commodities. 4. The ability to transport. To be useful, currencies must be easily transferable between participants in an economy. In terms of fiat currency, this means that units of currency must be transferable both within a country's economy and across borders via exchange. 5. Longevity. A currency must be at least reasonably durable in order to be effective. Coins or notes made of easily mutilated, damaged, or destroyed materials, or that degrade to the point of being unusable over time, are insufficient. Counterfeitability is a term used to describe the ability of a product to. In order to remain effective, a currency must be both durable and difficult to counterfeit. Otherwise, malicious parties could easily disrupt the currency system by flooding it with counterfeit bills, lowering the value of the currency. To determine Bitcoin's worth as a currency, we'll compare it to fiat currencies in each of the categories listed above. Bitcoin in comparison to fiat money. 1. Scarcity of resources. When Bitcoin was first introduced in 2009, its creators stipulated in the protocol that the total number of tokens available be limited to 21 million. To put things in perspective, Bitcoin's current supply is around 18 million. The rate at which it is released drops by half every 4 years, and the supply is expected to surpass 19 million in 2022. This is based on the assumption that the protocol will not be altered. Bitcoin has taken a different approach to supply than most other fiat currencies. The global fiat money supply is commonly divided into 3 buckets: M0, M1, M2, and M3. 8M0 stands for money in circulation. M1 is made up of M0 plus demand deposits like checking accounts. M2 is M1 plus small time deposits and savings accounts, known as certificates of deposit in the United States. M3 is a combination of M2 and large time deposits and money market funds. We will consider M0 and M1 to be mediums of exchange because they are easily accessible for use in commerce, whereas M2 and M3 will be considered money as a store of value. Most governments maintain some flexibility over the supply of currency in circulation as part of their monetary policy, making adjustments in response to economic factors. With Bitcoin, however, this is not the case. So far, the continued availability of more tokens to be generated has fueled a thriving mining community, but as the limit of 21 million coins approaches, this is likely to change dramatically. It's difficult to predict what will happen at that point. One analogy would be if the US government suddenly stopped printing new bills. Thankfully, the last Bitcoin isn't expected to be mined until around 2140. In general, scarcity can raise the value of a product. This is evident in precious metals such as gold. 2. The ability to divide. Notably, the total number of Bitcoins in circulation is a fraction of the total number of fiat currencies in circulation around the world. Bitcoin, fortunately, is divisible to 8 decimal places. 1011, the smallest unit, equal to 0.00000001 Bitcoin, is known as a Satoshi, after the cryptocurrency's pseudonymous creator. This enables the distribution of quadrillions of individual Satoshi units across a global economy. The divisibility of a Bitcoin is far greater than that of the US dollar or most other fiat currencies. Though the United States dollar is divided into cents, or 1/100th of a dollar, 1 Satoshi is only 1/100 millionth of a Bitcoin. Bitcoin's scarcity is enabled by its extreme divisibility. Even if Bitcoin's price rises over time, users with fractions of a single Bitcoin can still participate in everyday transactions. A price of $1 million for 1 BTC, for example, would prevent the currency from being used for most transactions if there was no divisibility. 3. Practicality. The use of blockchain technology has been one of Bitcoin's biggest selling points. Blockchain is a decentralized and trustless distributed ledger system, which means that no parties involved in the Bitcoin market must establish trust in one another in order for the system to function properly. This is made possible by a complex system of checks and verifications that is essential to the ledger's upkeep and the creation of new Bitcoins. Best of all, the flexibility of blockchain technology means it can be used for purposes other than cryptocurrencies. 4. The ability to transport. Bitcoin can be transferred between parties in minutes, regardless of transaction size and at very low costs, thanks to cryptocurrency exchanges, wallets, and other tools. In the current system, money transfers can take days and incur fees. Any currency's ability to be transferred is critical. Individuals do not typically hold any physical representation of Bitcoin in the process, despite the fact that mining Bitcoin, maintaining the blockchain, and processing digital transactions consumes a lot of electricity. 5. Longevity. In their physical form, fiat currencies have a major issue with durability. Even if a dollar bill is strong, it can be torn, burned, or otherwise rendered useless. These physical harms do not affect digital forms of payment in the same way. As a result, Bitcoin is extremely valuable. It is not destructible in the same way that a dollar bill is. That isn't to say that Bitcoins can't be misplaced. If a user loses his or her cryptographic key, the bitcoins in the associated wallet may become permanently unusable. The bitcoins themselves, on the other hand, will not be destroyed and will continue to exist in blockchain records. Counterfeitability is number 6. Bitcoin is extremely difficult to forge due to its complex, decentralized blockchain ledger system. To do so, all Bitcoin network participants would have to be confused, which is no easy task. The only way to make a counterfeit Bitcoin is to use a technique known as double spending. This is when a user spends, or transfers, the same Bitcoin in 2 or more different places, effectively creating a duplicate record. Though it is impossible to spend the same dollar bill in 2 or more separate transactions with a fiat currency note, it is theoretically possible with digital currencies. The size of the Bitcoin network, on the other hand, makes double spending unlikely. It would be necessary to launch a so-called 51% attack, in which a group of miners controls more than half of the network's power. This group could use its majority of network power to control the rest of the network and falsify records. Such an attack on Bitcoin, on the other hand, would necessitate a massive amount of effort, money, and computing power, making it extremely unlikely. Bitcoin obstacles. When compared to fiat currencies, Bitcoin performs admirably in the above categories. So, what are the issues that Bitcoin faces as a currency? The status of Bitcoin as a store of value is one of the most pressing concerns. The value of Bitcoin as a store of value is determined by its value as a medium of exchange. We base this on the assumption that something must have intrinsic value in order to be used as a store of value, and that if Bitcoin fails to succeed as a medium of exchange, it will have no practical utility and thus no intrinsic value, making it unappealing as a store of value. Bitcoin, like all fiat currencies, is not backed by any physical asset or precious metal. The current value of Bitcoin has been driven primarily by speculative interest for much of its history. Bitcoin has exhibited bubble-like characteristics, such as sharp price increases and a media frenzy. This is likely to decrease as Bitcoin gains mainstream acceptance, but the future remains uncertain. The difficulty of storing and exchanging cryptocurrency puts Bitcoin's utility and transferability in jeopardy. Hacks, thefts, and fraud have plagued digital currency exchanges in recent years. Of course, thefts occur in the world of fiat currency as well. However, in those cases, the law is much more settled, allowing for a more straightforward means of redress. When it comes to regulation, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are still seen as more of a Wild West scenario. Different governments have very different perspectives on Bitcoin, and the implications of Bitcoin's adoption as a global currency are huge.